Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel. Today, I'm here to give my thoughts on a new 4K release. We have got William Friedkin's Sorcerer on 4K from the Criterion Collection. Can you guys see that? I feel like I always have to put it like super close to the camera to get it to focus. I'm excited to talk about this one. This was a first time watch for me, guys. I know I say that often, but yeah, I'd never seen Sorcerer from 1977. Despite the fact that I did grab the Blu-ray, I feel like maybe 9 months ago. And of course, guys, the Blu-ray curse. When you buy the Blu-ray, the 4K is soon to follow. I was able to pop in that Blu-ray though, so we're gonna do a little comparing between the editions. But before we get into it, guys, we're going to discuss the movie. We're going to talk about the 4K. We're also going to talk about special features. We're going to do a little bit of an unboxing right here of this nice digipack release from the Criterion Collection. I am a sucker for a good Criterion digipack. But before we get into all that, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We talk about all things physical media here on this channel. I do breaking news updates, I do reviews, I do unboxings, I do physical media showcases, everything physical media here on this channel. If you like the kind of stuff, the kind of content, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into talking about the movie, guys. I have some notes wrote down. I'm trying to follow some sort of a guideline. I don't want to mess up too many things with this review. But this is a film that came out in 1977. And I think from what I gathered from some of the special features and some things that I was reading online, this movie came out in very close proximity to Star Wars. And the movie was a box office like failure. That's pretty notorious with this movie. It cost $22 million to make, whereas Star Wars cost $11 million to make. Just think about that. $22 million to make, and it grossed $9 million worldwide, which in 1977, that's a disaster. Of course, directed by William Friedkin. This was his big follow-up to The Exorcist. This is the first movie that he directed after The Exorcist, after The French Connection, which he was just riding an extraordinary high after those two movies. You had The French Connection, which got all sorts of Oscar recognition. He won Best Director on that one. And did it win Best Picture? I can't remember. I think it did win Best Picture. Then, of course, The Exorcist. He was riding all kinds of highs in the early to mid 70s. Then he went on to do this movie right here, which is based on a novel called The Wages of Fear. And there is also a movie called The Wages of Fear, which was an adaptation of that novel, which came out in 1953. That's a French film that also does have a Criterion Collection that I now do want to get after watching this, so I may get that pretty soon. But what was also interesting was when I was looking it up on IMDb, I noticed that there was a 2024 adaptation, a movie called The Wages of Fear, that's also a French film, and it's on Netflix. So there is another adaptation of The Wages of Fear out there. If you want to watch it, it's on Netflix. I was looking up the scores on it, and it has like a 15 or 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's very low, so it's not very well regarded. But if you're interested, you can check that out. The screenplay of this movie was written by a guy named Waylon Green, who also did The Wild Bunch. Which, come on, Criterion, look, you did Sorcerer. Can we get The Wild Bunch on 4K from the Criterion Collection? Nice digipack release. In this movie, you have starring Roy Scheider, of course, coming off of the success of Jaws, and he's really like the only name that I know of, and I imagine most people kind of knew of at that time. Maybe, you know, some people knew some of the other actors in this film. But just getting into the actual like plot of the film briefly, the movie centers around four desperate men from around the globe as they agree to risk their lives transporting gallons of nitroglycerin across a dangerous Latin America jungle. So very interesting premise and setup. You got these four men from shady past. They've all done horrible, despicable things. You got an Arab terrorist. You got a Mexican assassin. You got a corrupt French businessman. And you've got a guy from New Jersey that's a driver for the mob. So these guys are not really worthy of redemption, but they've all been exiled to this Latin America village. They're all in hiding, and they're all thrown into the suicide mission basically out of desperation to get out of the situation that they're in. So, you know, a very interesting setup. I will say this about the movie. It takes a while to get going, but once it does, like it's an extremely tense, visceral experience all the way to the end. It's just getting to that point. And to be honest, like if I had to give this movie, like if there was one flaw with this film, I did really enjoy the film, by the way. Really enjoyed the movie. But one flaw I would say, maybe this isn't a flaw. Maybe that's just the point of the movie, but like it takes so long and you spend so much time with these characters and they really don't offer you anything to like attach yourself to them or like get behind them in any way. They don't redeem them in any way. So when the mission starts, it's like, yes, you're on edge and yes, you're tense, but I feel like the suspense could have been a little heightened if you actually cared about the characters just a little bit more. But all four lead actors are incredible, and there are moments, to be fair, like when they're on the actual mission in the car, you know, kind of talking to each other, some of their back and forth and banter. That does add to some character. That does redeem them a little bit, but I feel like it's a little too late in the film when they actually decide to introduce it. Cinematography, visuals are freaking off the charts, just amazing. Like once they get into the actual, you know, transportation of the materials, just the way that, you know, freaking shoots these trucks like driving through the jungle, the bridge sequence. Oh my God, the bridge sequence is every bit as stunning as like everybody made it out to be. And just that's the poster right there, that shot with the guy down on the bridge, like guiding him over. Like it's such an incredible visual and it plays out in the film brilliantly. The score, though, like the real highlight of this film to me, and like music, I've said it before, is like 75% of the movie and like if it works or not. Because like the Tangerine Dream score in this, it just really just like heightens everything, just makes everything so much better, I feel like, than it would be without the score. But so the music is incredible in this. It kind of just feels like this otherworldly, like melody, almost horror in some parts. It's this very synth wave type score, but it's so good and so intoxicating and entrancing and just really draws you into what you're viewing on screen. Really good movie. Really good movie. I would probably give it a 4 stars out of 5. It may go up on rewatches. It's definitely a film that I do want to rewatch at some point, and it's a movie that ever since I watched it, I just can't really get it out of my head. So now getting into the 4K itself, guys, this is a native 4K restoration with Dolby Vision HDR10. Now, this was not the first 4K restoration that they did on Sorcerer. There was actually a 2013 restoration that was approved by William Friedkin himself. So this Blu-ray right here is a 4K restoration on a Blu-ray disc. But from what I understand, from what I gather from the details that are in the booklet inside the Criterion release, this is a new restoration on this Criterion release. They just used the past restoration as a reference when it came to doing the new color grade on this. And I thought this looked fantastic, guys. I mean, it looked great. I talked about 70s films on 4K before, and there's just something about them. And there's just like they're very gritty, realistic nature that just lends itself perfectly to a 4K. The movie set in the jungle, the Latin American jungle, so that setting, I feel like with that HDR and Dolby Vision, like you got all that lush, like vibrant greenery around, like the actual like truck itself and the rain and in the darkness, like the bridge sequence in 4K looks great. You can see all the rain droplets falling down. There's just some incredible detail in every single frame of this 4K, I feel like. Now, this is I've talked about this before as well, but like movies that have a lot of sweat, like people sweating, this is a very sweaty film. I will say, because they're in like the Latin America jungle. There's no air conditioning in this small village where they're at. They're eating a lot, like in the first hour, because there's not a lot going on. They're just sitting around eating, they're sweating everywhere. And when they do those close-ups on their faces and you can see every like little individual bead of sweat like dripping off their face, it looks stunning. It looks absolutely stunning. And that's the kind of detail you don't really get on a Blu-ray, on a DVD. Yes, you can see the sweat, but you can't see it with that level of detail. And you can see the pores in each individual like hair follicle on their face. So all that stuff looks great. The only thing I'll say is, you know, this Blu-ray, I popped this in. I popped this in after I watched the 4K. So while I'm watching the 4K for the first time, I really have no reference to anything that came out before. I popped in this Blu-ray And this Blu-ray looks damn good. As far as detail, it looks great. It looks really good, really solid for a Blu-ray. There's also an incredible amount of color and vibrancy to this Blu-ray as well. I will say, and it doesn't look bad by any means, but it is a little bit, it's more saturated. It's a more saturated look as far as the colors than the 4K is. The 4K really, with that HDR, makes things a little bit darker, and it looks a little bit more natural. I think what the HDR and that Dolby Vision does when you're really applying it to full effect, like it really takes things back to a more like natural state for these movies. Whereas maybe some people watch this Blu-ray and be like, oh, this looks better. Like I like the way that this looks more than the 4K. I actually think the 4K looks a little bit better. And I kind of compare it. It's a weird comparison, but Friday the 13th on 4K, it kind of just made me think of it because I feel like the Friday the 13th Screen Factory Blu-ray was very saturated and it also took place in the woods and stuff. So there's where the comparison comes from. And the trees and the leaves, very saturated look to them. Whereas you watch the Friday the 13th 4K, like it's a darker look, and all the leaves are a little bit darker green. I feel like a little bit more natural. So, but it's all in taste sometimes when it comes to 4K. I think that it's undisputed that this has got a lot more detail to it than this Blu-ray, but this Blu-ray, like it looks pretty damn good as well. It also looked a little bit more blue, a little bit more teal in some scenes that I noticed versus this Blu-ray right here. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the new color correction or maybe that was the HDR Dolby Vision, but I did notice a little bit of a change right there as well. Getting into the audio, guys, there's a little bit of audio detail on the back that I'm going to read real quick. But this does have a 5.1 surround remix that was created in 2013 and approved by Freakin'. You also got the original theatrical 2.0 surround soundtrack that was remastered from the 35 millimeter magnetic track. And they also leave a note right here, which is pretty interesting. It says, please be sure to enable Dolby Pro Logic decoding on your receiver to properly play the 2.0 surround soundtrack. So that's pretty interesting. They actually leave you notes on how to watch this. So you got the 5.1 and you got the 2.0. I listened to it with the 5.1. It sounded great. This movie's got a lot of big moments, big set piece moments, explosions, like the actual truck itself, driving itself is just, it's a set piece in and of itself. And all that stuff sounds great. Like I said, you feel like you're actually there with them in these trucks. And that sound definitely helps for sure. Now, diving into the packaging here, guys, look at this. Gorgeous Digipack packaging here from the Criterion Collection. I think it looks absolutely phenomenal. And you take it out of the actual pack itself, and you got this little Digipack set right here, which shows you some images from the film. You flip it around. This is a 3-disc set, which we'll dive into the contents of those here in a second. But you got the 4K, you got the Blu-ray, and then you got the Blu-ray bonus disc right there as well. Of course, I just showed it off, but you got a nice little booklet in here, or a little kind of like pamphlet, brochure type thing. It's got some images and it's got some writings on the film. It's also got the details on the restoration if you guys want to look a little bit closer into that. But I can show you all that if you want to see it. If you don't want to hear me rambling, you want all the details, there you go. But nice packaging. I do love me a good, Criterion Digipack, so no issues, no problems with this whatsoever. Did I show you the back? Let me zoom that in for the details. You can read the synopsis. This is spine number 1267. That's very important to say, guys, with a new Criterion release. Now, diving into the features, guys, I dove headfirst into these features. I love the features on this. This is where I think you get the most bang for your buck with this release right here. This release, there's no new audio commentaries or anything like that, but this release has Freakin' Uncut, which is a 2018 documentary that features interviews with Freakin', screenwriter Waylon Green, filmmakers Wes Anderson, Francis Ford Coppola, Quentin Tarantino, and others. So like this is a fantastic documentary. It's about an hour and 47 minutes long. I watched the entire thing. And it's a largely a look at like The Exorcist and The French Connection, but it goes into a good deal of Sorcerer as well. And this documentary is also on Tubi. So, if you just want to watch the documentary, you don't want to have to get Sorcerer on 4K. You know, you can watch it on Tubi right now, but I do recommend the documentary. And it's an older documentary, it's 7 years old, but it's cool they put it on here because I don't know if that documentary is on any other freaking release, and I don't think it's got an actual disc, a physical disc. So it is cool if they put that documentary on here, and it is a great documentary for sure. Then you got a new conversation between filmmaker James Gray and film critic Sean Fennessy, which is a great conversation. It's about 26 minutes long, and they just kind of go into the making of Sorcerer, how it was, received when it came out critically, commercially, how it was a bomb, and all that stuff. And they just really like do a good job assessing the film, talking about the film. And I thought it was a great feature. I watched the entirety of that as well. It's about 26 minutes. Then you got a conversation from 2015 between Freakin' and filmmaker Nicholas Winding Refn. This is about an hour and 20 minutes long. I watched about 20 minutes of this. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I do kind of want to watch the whole thing because that whole interview or conversation between them is about Sorcerer. They're just kind of going back and forth about Sorcerer. And, it seemed like it was going to be pretty interesting when I started it. Then you got archival audio interviews with Green and editor Bud Smith from the collection. I can't even pronounce that, guys. But anyway, there's like some audio interviews. They basically just show a tape recorder and they're just playing like audio interviews and stuff like that. That's about 20 minutes long. I listened to maybe like 2 to 3 minutes of that. But really here, guys, the meat is that documentary, Freaking Uncut. Very cool they included that. Then that conversation between the filmmaker and the critic. Then the conversation between Freakin' and Nicholas Winding Refn, which is great. That totals up with the audio stuff about 4 hours of special features included in this release right here. So Criterion really went all out for the special features here. Then you got behind the scenes footage, you got a trailer, and you got English subtitles as well. And then you got some essays in the booklet, which I've already pointed out before. Now, with the special features, I do want to point out that they are all on the same disc. None of the special features are on the Blu-ray and the 4K. You do have the 4K by itself on a disc, and you got the Blu-ray with the 4K scan by itself on a disc as well. And then you got all the special features by themselves on a Blu-ray disc. And I imagine they did that because that freaking documentary is a new documentary that was shot, in HD or maybe even 4K. It was shot because it came out back in 2018. So I imagine they had to have the room to be able to put that documentary and the new conversation with Refn as well on that Blu-ray disc. And I also want to point out, guys, that you do have a Blu-ray only standard edition of this as well. If you don't care about 4K, you can just get a Blu-ray edition of Sorcerer for a little bit cheaper. But guys, look, this was a great release. It might be my favorite Criterion release of the year so far. My favorite Criterion release in quite some time. Really enjoyed the film itself, and I thought the 4K was absolutely outstanding with those special features, just icing on the cake. So definitely pick this one up right now during the July Criterion Barnes & Noble sale. You can get it for 25 bucks on both Amazon and in Barnes & Noble and on the Barnes & Noble website. I'll try to link all that stuff down below in the description, guys. And again, you can get the Blu-ray for 20 bucks right now. But if you're watching this in August or, October, September, it's going to be back up to 35 bucks, but you can get it again in November if you want to. So thank you all so much for watching this review. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on those bell notifications for all future videos and follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.